Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one, I'd like to take a look at some fun deck ideas for the Silver Series format. So what is the Silver Series? It's a new trainer trial format that will last 2 weeks on TCG Live. It is Scarlet and Violet, single prize only, max rarity being rares. And to be honest, this format does seem pretty balanced, though Dusknoir will likely still be a menace in this format, along with Budgie and Cramorant, so just things to bear in mind really. Also not mentioned in this video is of course United Wings, which I do think will be a popular choice in this format. United Wings has definitely been a bit of a fan favorite among players in the TCG, so just something to bear in mind in case you see a lot of United Wings. But yeah, honestly, this first idea is just going to be Venomoth Froslass. So Venomoth has the attack Perplexing Powder, which is basically just beat for beat Budew. However, it does also inflict confusion and do 20 more damage, which is a bit more sizable in my opinion. So I do think Venomoth Froslass paired up with Salvatore will be really good. Of course, I could have just picked Budew Froslass, but I think Venomoth is a bit more interesting than Budew, to be honest. A lot of decks run Budew, and it's a bit boring, it's a bit monotone, it's a bit repetitive. So I thought, yeah, Venomoth. Venomoth would be a lot more interesting. So I do think Venomoth has a place in this format for sure. Next up, though, is we have some fun Stage 2 ideas. We've got Metagross and Tyranitar, which I do think are they're definitely on the better side of things for stage twos. I've tried these out in standard more recently, and they were both a lot of fun. Have really enjoyed playing around with Metagross and Trinitar, so I'd expect these to be pretty decent in this format, like Metagross with Xatu and then Trinitar with the Dunsparce. So Trinitar especially with that item lock being quite powerful against a lot of other single prize builds. So yeah, Trinitar honestly looking quite scary. I do have Walrein and Seismitoad here as some semi-disruptive Stage 2 water Pokemon that both happen to have 170 HP and a retreat cost of 3, which is interesting actually. I just realized that. But yeah, Frigid Fangs on Walrein basically just walls out Pokemon that attack for 2 or less energy. So it is quite disruptive in a format where energy acceleration, I feel like, is quite limited, and you're kind of reliant a bit more on manual attachments and things like Crispin. So I do think Walrein could be quite scary in that sense. Pair this up with Monkey Dory, some Crushing Hammers, maybe. That could be quite scary. So yeah, Walrein's pretty cool. Also got Seismitoad, which is a bit more expensive in the attack cost, but Quaking Zone can also just flat out increase the attack cost of your opponent's Pokemon. So again, quite powerful in my opinion. Next up, though, is we have maybe a bit more of a generic suggestion, which is the Hops deck, of course. Now, you could build this around Sandaconda or Corviknight. I'd have to imagine that Corviknight is a bit more competitive than Sandaconda, but to be honest, give credit where credit is due. I think Sandaconda has some merits of its own, just mainly the fact that you have access to other fighting type support or other fighting type Pokemon, like, for example, the Blood Moon Ursaluna from Shrouded Fable comes to mind, but, things like that, really. Hops Corviknight can make use of things like Metang if you want some more bench sitters, but overall, I do think Hops Corviknight is probably just the better of the two, really. But Hops Corviknight paired up with Snorlax and Cramorant could definitely be its own little deck, really. Cramorant especially being quite devastating in this format, very cheap, easy to attack with, can want to kill pretty much anything else in the format that's relevant. So yeah, Cramorant seems quite powerful, aside from, of course, my boy Wailord. But, we're not going to talk about Wailord in this video, actually. But yeah, sadly, no Wailords. But yeah, Cramorant, again, very powerful. Next up is we have, this was a bit of an elephant in the room that I felt I had to mention. Festival Lead will be legal in this format, which is quite scary, actually. So Diplin, Thwackey, Lilligant, and Seeking as well, actually, if you really want to play Seeking. But the main thing is Diplin, right? Diplin and Thwackey are the important pieces. Lilligant there to boost damage, but a very, very scary deck, really, just because you can cheat the prize race, really, with Festival Lead and take multiple prizes at once, really. So there is, some counters to this. Some. I think the next few ideas will be decent counters to Diplin. Mainly Ancient Box, though, because I feel like Ancient Box, you're a bit too tanky for Diplin to deal with. At least especially if they don't have, Lilligant in play. Once they get a few Lilligants down or something, then maybe Ancient Box becomes a lot more doable because your damage cap is 120 with this deck, really. But once you get more modifiers involved, then yeah, Ancient Box becomes more manageable. But I still think Festival Lead is certainly one of the better decks in this format for sure. Next up is we have Great Tusk Mill, which is, I think this one is flying under the radar a bit. It's not really a deck anymore in Standard. It's kind of fallen off a bit. But Land Collapse is still kind of potent. It's probably one of the better mill decks for sure. Discard the top card of your opponent's deck, and if you played an Ancient Supporter card from your hand during this turn, discard 3 more. So if you play a Sada, which you'll need to like charge up energy to your Great Tusk, and then perhaps you'll use things like what's that baton called? Anyway, there's a baton that basically lets you conserve energy on Pokemon with a high retreat cost. I think that would work on Great Tusk. You've also got the oh, what is it? Mine's drawing a blank here again. What's it called? The Explorer's Guidance. That's it. The Explorer's Guidance supporters. So like you can have like ways of paying for this, like line collapses. It's decent, but like at the same time, your opponent could start one killing Great Tusk, and then it's a bit more of a problem, really. But assuming you run things like Counter Catcher, you know, you could like gust up things and stall for a bit. You got Maractus as well to do some retreat locking, so yeah, it could be a fun deck to be honest, especially if you're a fan of mill control builds. So yeah, that's Great Tusk Mill. Of course, like Wug Trio could take this place with Reverse Energy, but I thought Wug Trio was just a bit rubbish, really, and not really worth mentioning. But yeah, Wug Trio is still technically an option here. Next up is we've got Crobat in 6th place. I do really like Crobat. I think there's some potential here for a fun rogue deck. It's not the best. You know, it's like it's a bit fragile. Poison Fang's not doing a ton of damage. And Shadowy Envoy is very dependent on you running Janane's Secret Art, which to be fair, you'll want to do anyway, just to get like the additional Energy Acceleration in there. But then, you know, Mochi is really where this deck comes together, because then you can actually do Poison Fang for 160, then Poison Tick takes it up to 180, and then, you know, you can use Powerless Jungle if you want to as well. So I think there's a little bit of a deck here, but it's just a case of, if you don't have any of these cards, do you really want to go out of your way to craft all of them from Shrouded Fable? Maybe not, but, you know, still could be quite fun, I think. Next up is we do have Ancient Box. I do think Ancient Box is kind of like more of a direct counter to Diplin, especially with Midnight Fluttering on Fluttermane, but overall I do think this deck will be very consistent, very powerful, quite scary, maybe not as good without Pokestop, but, you know, still quite potent, I would say, overall. Especially since actually we have things like the Dunsparce, but also Revroom actually. I've not really thought about this before the video, but Revroom can discard energy to draw cards until you have 6 in hand, which could be useful when pairing this deck up with, you know, Sada's Vitality, which you'll want to play in this deck anyway. So, you know, just something to bear in mind if you're looking to build Ancient Box. But yeah, I do think this one could be quite good overall in this format. Next up is we have, of course, Feraligatr. Have to be mentioned, you know, maybe not as strong because Mimikyu is just, you know, not doing anything in this format except maybe some spread damage. But Feraligatr I did think was still quite powerful, especially with Maractus. So Maractus kind of doubles as you can't really attack into this without taking 60 damage. But also you can use Corner in a pinch and basically trap your opponent's Pokemon. So you have not only this hit and run deck, but you also have a hit and run deck that has a late game win condition, which is just boss something up and stall with it, basically. So I do think Feraligatr at least has some decent potential in this format. Next up is we have Slowking, which is, yeah, quite scary actually that Slowking is legit available in this format. I do think Slowking is one of the better single prize decks in Standard right now, so it's interesting to see that it's here. And Kyurem, for some reason, is an uncommon card. I didn't know that before recording this video. Like, I did not know that Kyurem was uncommon. I just thought it was a rare, but no, Kyurem is in fact an uncommon, which is, yeah, very scary. So if your opponent is basically just not running Rabska, or Rabasca, whatever it's called, you'll basically just be able to spam Trifrost and just board wipe your opponent. So, yeah, that's not scary at all. So yeah, Slowking, Xatu, Kyurem, plus like Conkeldurr to just throw out 250 if you're running to Wailord or something. But, you know, you have plenty of options. Yeah, it's a very, very scary deck, really. Next up is we have a bit more of a fun one, and I just included this because I like Orthworm, really, but yeah, it's a Metang Heatran plus Orthworm side special, so like, you don't have to run Orthworm, of course, but I thought it was interesting and, you know, worth mentioning. If this Pokemon has 3 or more Metal Energy attached to it, it gets plus 100 HP. So you can have 230 HP, but if you also give it a Luxury Escape, I think it's called, you get another plus 100 HP. So, you know, you can get quite silly with Orthworm. And then Shoot Through does 100 damage and then 30 damage Snipe. So, you know, I'm not going to read out Heatran. I'm sure everyone knows what Heatran does, but Metang Heatran, you know, that has been more of a deck in Standard, like more of a rogue deck, really, but, you know, still the deck. Then, like, Metang Orthworm is just kind of like a bit of a meme, but, you know, maybe good enough in this format, especially since there's not really any bench protection. But yeah, thanks for watching. I've got kind of a spoiler on the deck that I would like to cover, as long as it's not complete rubbish. But yeah, I would like to try out Galvantula at some point in this format, but hopefully I'll have to, you know, try and find the time to do so. But yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of the deck ideas here. It's nothing like too radical or crazy. I do have some more fun ideas, but I'm kind of cooking them up for videos that I just want to see if they're actually going to be good or not. But yeah, thank you for watching. Let me know what you think down below. And yeah, thank you for watching.